Is this the deepest and best Badgers receiver room of all time? On Wisconsin, Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. As always, greatly appreciate everybody tuning in. Let's get into it. We got the three amigos jumping on here. Justin, writer at Badger Notes. Rajiv, writer at Badger Notes. Justin, one of the founding members of the BuckyCast, joining us to talk the receiver show. Guys, we're just going to start with the big picture question here. Is this the best and or deepest receiver group for the Badgers since when? ... Rajiv, I know you threw that one out there to kind of start with, so I want to go to you for this question.
Yeah, I think best is really hard to say right now because we haven't seen a lot of these guys. And I think speculative maybe, but deepest, I'm going to say yes, just because we have experience coupled with new experience. We've got guys that have been productive here like Dike and Bell and Lewis. And we have guys coming in that have been productive like Bryson Green. And we have tons and tons of talent like Will Pauling and CJ Williams. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I don't really think that the deepest can really be argued. I would love for someone to name a deeper one. Best, you can go back to the Lee Evans time. You can go back to the Brandon Williams side. There's a lot of things that could be best, but deepest, I don't know that you can challenge that right now. I'm interested to hear what your guys' takes, but with the experience we already have, with who we brought in the transfer portal and who are we bringing in from a recruiting perspective, I mean, this room is just absolutely loaded.
I would say that it 100% is the deepest. I think best. Weren't Chris Chambers and Lee Evans on the same team for a year?
They were.
For a
that
year.
Was 2000.
So technically, that's the top two. Like you have a first round pick and a guy who I think Chambers was a third round pick that ended up putting a couple thousand yard seasons up in the NFL. So yeah, I'd say that those two, like unless we get that kind of top end talent, it's hard to go above that. But from a depth standpoint, yes, I legitimately look at this group and it wouldn't shock me if we have 4 guys end up eventually getting drafted. Like I think that could happen.
I agree with Rajiv. I think it's the deepest. I just think I'll say this. We've all followed Badger football for quite a while. I've never felt this good about the depth at receiver spot. And that's anecdotal,
totally.
Right? That's just my opinion. But listen, I have never felt this good about it. The people I've talked about have never felt this good about the depth. I cannot remember a year where we were excited about like the 5th, 6th, 7th receivers on a roster. Like this, it's just unreal for where Wisconsin has been. So deepest, yes. I would challenge anybody to argue that. Best, no. No, it's not the best. Because Justin, you pointed out the Evans Chambers year. That was 2000. Evans had 33 catches for 19.4 yards per carry that year, right? Like, or per reception, sorry. So it's not the best because there's been a Lee Evans, Chris Chambers combo, and nobody on this roster, as much as we like several players, nobody on this roster has proven to be capable of that level of play. You've also had a Lee Evans, Brandon Williams combo. Those are both NFL guys. Mm-hmm. Again, like, so I think it has the potential to be talked about among those groups if a couple players hit their ceilings. Yeah. But deepest, yes. I agree with you there.
I think looking at this team right now, from what we've seen, I think we feel the most comfortable with this team if there's an injury, having a guy who is not necessarily the exact same level, but is not an incredible drop off a cliff like we have been previously. If something were to happen, we can withstand injuries this year, and you can honestly say we've never been able to do that.
It's a really good point. You can't say that about other positions that we have right now. You can say that about wide receiver. That's very, very true. Very, very good point. I can tell. Look, Bo Dragon already disagrees with us. I can see him putting up a year that he thinks is deeper with guys like Luke Swan and those guys. I see your point, Bo, but I still think from a perspective of higher upside on some of these guys, if the people that we currently have in the room, we hit on those guys, this year gets blown up. As far as I'm concerned.
Yep, I agree. All right, let's move into our positional grades. I want to start with, and we'll get some of these comments in here as well. Let's see. But let's go positional grades. Guys, put them out there as well in the comments. We're going future grade and current grade. Let's start current grade. I'll just kick it off on this one. I have B+ for the current grade. I think the depth is really good. Again, I think if you're talking an A- room, you're talking about a guy who you know is going to be a first-round pick, and we just don't know any of these guys are at that level. I think we have a ton of depth. We have a lot of quantity. I think we have quality too, I just don't know if we have a stud, right? I don't know if we have an alpha number one receiver who can dominate a game. And I think you need that if you're gonna say my receiver room's an A, you need a first round pick guy that you know is a first round pick guy. But I'd B+ for this year.
I disagree. I don't think you need to have that to have an A room. I think you need the depth to have an A room. So I'm going to say A- here for current grade, because we know we didn't even get to see Bryson Green play in the spring game. Like we have not even seen that, and think about where we are with him. And we know what Dike and Bell can bring us. We know what kind of potential CJ has. So I really think it's an A- right now. I see your point about having the ultra stud guy, but I don't think you need that. When you have this much talent, 7, 8 deep that can really play, plus you have a guy like Tretch coming in, and who knows what he's going to be able to bring you, I'm happy with an A- right now.
Yeah, I think I side with Ryan on this one, and I'll say this, because the reason why I say it is simply this. What that stud does do for you is, when we've talked about it in the past, the wide receiver room, it gives you that guy can go out and get it on a play, where he can do something where it's not there and he makes something happen. And I think that that's what you need. Now, we may have that guy. So, Rajiv, if you're not wrong, but we just don't know yet. Like, it could very well be Bryson Green. It could be CJ Williams, for all we know. And who knows, maybe Tretch blows, comes out there and
Rajiv,
by week
wrong.
6.
You're just not as bright as Ryan.
Yeah, I know. You're
Well,
not.
I mean,
But listen. Going into any season in the last 10 years, therefore, are you as high? You have to say. I'm guessing that you're going to say you're higher right now going into this season with our receivers than any other year in recent history.
Oh yeah, it's not close.
So then, how can it not be? How can it not have an A attached to it?
I think it depends. At the receivers in our recent history.
Yeah,
but it's relative. Looking at it relatively.
I think what you need to look at with this is, are we putting it against Wisconsin history, or are we putting it against what we look at in terms of what is a good team's wide receiver room? Because I personally look at it from, if we're talking about what we want to accomplish this year, how do we feel about our wide receiver room against Ohio State or Michigan? And a B+ I think is about right until we get some questions answered. Now, are there guys who I think that are very capable of answering that? We have more potential to answer those questions than in any season I can remember in the last decade plus. So,
let me bring up these comments here. Big Apple Bucky says Evans, Chambers, Davis in 2000 was pretty darn good. 100% sure. Isaac Zay says, I have no idea if it's the best receiver room, but it's sure fun to speculate wildly about it. We've talked about that. To have the conversation.
That's what we do.
Made. And Keith Janke says, definitely great to have the conversation about it. Logan Couch says, top 5 receiver core in the Big Ten West. Someone's lower on this group than we are. Yeah, it's interesting. Geeb says it'd be the deepest if we had Jack Dunn. So there's lots of opinions here. Jake Mayer says, looking at the depth chart, I feel comfortable with the top 6, 7 guys. Imagine saying that before. All this is completely true.
We couldn't get best 3 before.
Here's what I think. Justin hit on something that I think is a really good point, and he did a better job of trying to explain the point I think I was trying to make. Is I think the pieces are here for a higher ceiling, but for me to say it's an A room, an A- room, like Ohio State has an A room because they have 3 guys are going to be NFL guys, like top 3 round picks. And I just need to see that to say it's an A room. But I think to Justin's point, he said it really well, is there's guys in this room that honestly the ceiling's there to do it.
And I think for me, I'm kind of to what Justin said. I think I'm comparing it more to Wisconsin rooms rather than I don't really look at our team and compare it to Ohio State, because if that's the case, then you can give us much lower grades if we're comparing ourselves to Ohio State. But when you compare us to any year in my 24-year fandom, I've never been as excited about the receivers as I am right now. Therefore, I mean, how can I not give it a better grade? That's kind of my perspective on it.
If we're putting it against Wisconsin's previous history, this is an A+ room, but we're also running completely different system and everything else. So it's so hard to even truly compare those things, because it's apples and oranges. Like, these are 2 very different things with what these 2 coaching staffs wanted to accomplish. Now, the way I look at it from this standpoint is that I legitimately feel like we have a top 3 or 4 wide receiver room in the Big Ten right now. And I think that there are guys in this. Listen, I don't think you need to have a first round guy, but I think you need to have a top 3 round guy. Like, you have to have a guy that you look at that can be an all conference type player on your team. And I think there's a couple of guys that are capable of that type of ceiling. Like, we wouldn't be shocked if Green ends up being a guy who's first or second team all conference. Dike might even be a guy who ends up getting into the top 3 teams by the time the season's all done. Like there's multiple guys you can look at that have that type of potential to have a big season where you look at it and go, yeah, this isn't shocking. Like we could see this type of ceiling from a guy based off the offense that we're running and with the amount of weapons that are out there, teams not being able to double up on guys.
Well, let's take a quick break here. We need to get into a friend of the show, but we're coming up next. We're going to talk superlatives. Is there a receiver that's going to get over 800 yards this season? Who do you think that is, if there is? More superlatives with Tretch, with CJ, with Will Pauling. We're going to get into all that and more, and make fun of Anthony LaFar, who thinks Nebraska is probably going to win the West this year.
No,
stop it, Anthony. That's coming up on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at eBay Motors. eBay Motors has become a great partner to the show. And Justin and Rajiv knows as well as I do. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is the perfect fit. And same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors with eBay Guaranteed Fit. You can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage, look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. I do want to take a quick sec to say thank you to everybody tuning in, obviously to Justin and Rajiv for tuning in as well. Let's keep this going. I'm really excited for the over-unders on this one. We threw some numbers around. Let's start with the first one. And Justin, I'm going to kick this over to you to start.
Okay.
Because I think this is one you and I are going to differ on greatly. Is there going to be over-under? This isn't even over-under. Is there going to be a receiver over 800 yards this year? And if so, who is it? And if not, who's closest?
I mean, you and I kind of discussed this offline because I threw out the question because I was really curious with this number, the 800. And I was like, is there a guy who's capable of getting multiple 100-yard games? And I think there are guys who are capable of getting a couple 100-yard games. But with how much depth is in this room, how much are guys going to cannibalize each other when it comes to stats? And I think that there's a chance that some of that happens. If it's going to happen, I feel like it's going to be Green. I feel like he's the most polished and has the most just flat out upside to just be a game wrecker out there on the field. So if there's a guy who I think is going to do it, it's probably him. He needs to be healthy and he needs to show that he's a starter going into the camp here. But I think that that's going to happen. But I think he's the guy that I would say is going to get 800.
Okay. Rajiv.
I'm going to say yes, there will be one that's over. And I thought about this. I wanted my first inkling was CJ Williams because he has such incredible potential. But I actually think it's going to be Chimere Dike because the ball's going to be spread out a little bit more. The defenders, the top corners aren't necessarily going to be blanketing Dike. The room's going to be spread out. The plays are going to be different than we've ever seen. And he obviously has the most raw experience, total experience on our roster. Yeah, I mean, I actually think that we might even have two that get 800 yards this year. And then I would probably say, yeah, I mean, Dike and maybe Green, maybe Williams, one of those. I'm not sure really who it's going to be. But I'm going to say Dike over 800. Yeah, for sure, at least one.
Matthew Anderson, Justin really kind of agrees with you. Green against Texas was the guy you're talking about, makes something out of nothing. If healthy, he's a stud. Bryson Green, he's really good, potentially. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, based off of Josh Downs, Pauling is a guy too, given the fact that Downs had 1,000-yard season not long ago. So he likes the slot guys. Longo definitely likes hitting those guys for tons of catches.
Yeah, I like Pauling. We have an over-under with Pauling coming up too, which I think I'm going to go over on. But for the 800, I'm also going over. I also think if somebody does it, I would, if I had to put money on somebody, it's Dike. I think he's just incredibly polished. I think he can do work at every level, and I think he's going to be an offense that opens it up a lot for him. Really good hands, tough, dependable. By the way, he stays healthy. Bryson Green hasn't even been healthy this camp.
Really good point.
Yeah. Stays available, which
consistency. Dike is the model of consistency. He's been that for us, and now he's not necessarily going to have the number one corner on him. So I think he could really have a great year.
Yeah, I would put it on Dike for all of those reasons. All right, let's get to our next over under. Rajiv, we'll kick this one to you to start. Let's go over under Will Pauling 50 receptions.
Wow. The receptions are difficult because of how it's going to get spread out. But I'm going to say over because we know he plays in the slot and we know that Longo likes the slot. There's going to be a lot of quick releases, a lot of quick dropbacks and hitting the guy on the slot on slant patterns and things of that nature. So, yeah, I think he's probably going to have 50. So you're looking at that point, you're looking at basically 4 to 5 receptions a game. He should be able to have that. Now, how much of his snaps are going to be shared with Bell? Where does Bell fit into this? And does he eat away some of the Pauling catches? But Pauling is experienced. He's very good. Everything that we've seen. Listen, easy now. But yeah, I think I'm going to take the over on that because it's really not that many per game. And given his position where he plays in the slot, he will get a lot of touches.
This is a really interesting question to me because I look at it, and Ryan, you and I talked about this, and I think Rajiv, you might have been in the conversation too, where I said, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with how catches break out this year for us. Like, what are running backs' roles going to be? What is the tight end room going to look like in terms of catches? And it's kind of one of those things where I look at it and it's like, well, this gets complicated if we start getting running backs that get, 30 catches. Like if for some reason we have, that happen, or we have a tight end that gets 35, 40 catches, it starts to complicate, these guys having really high numbers. Now, I think Pauling is probably going to be the leader when it comes to overall receptions. I just don't know what that's going to be. Like, he could end up having 50 like this and then end up having two guys that are like high 30s or low 40s, but right behind him. I will say I think that he's got a good chance, and I will say I'm gonna go on the above that because it's only like a little over 4 a game. Mm-hmm. I think that he's going to be the safety valve.
Yep, I'm taking the over on this one as well. Dan Pazernik, by the way, says Wisconsin's winning the West, Anthony, but I think some people are sleeping on Nebraska and Purdue. I think he takes the over on this as well. If you look back at the Longo offenses, Downs had about 100 catches each of the last 2 years. The year before that, he had 2 guys over 50 receptions in the Longo offense. Yeah, I think Pauling has a chance to lead the team in receptions, and if he does that, he's almost certainly going to be over 50. So I feel pretty good about the over 50 on Will Pauling. Let's go to the next one. Tretch Kekahuna over under 5.5 receptions this season. I'll just start this one. We'll go in order. I say under. I think there's too many numbers ahead of him. I love Tretch. This is not a reflection of my opinion on him. I think he's going to be a stud in Wisconsin. Monster recruiting win. I just don't know how much he's going to play with we just got done talking about this is the deepest receiver room that any of us can remember. And now we're talking about a true freshman who wasn't here for spring practice. I'm going to go under.
I agree. I'm going to step in here because I know Justin will vehemently disagree with us, but I'm going to go under as well. I love Kekahuna. Let's get that straight. Clear as day. He played his high school ball down the street from my house here in Vegas. He's incredible. He is going to be an absolute star for us. I do not think he's going to see much of the field. Our wide receiver room is super deep. We can list 9 players right now that are basically on the depth chart before you get to Tretch, at least for now. Therefore, yeah, I mean, you're talking about a reception every 2 games. I just don't think it's going to happen. He is going to be a star. He's going to be incredible. I can't wait to see him play. And if for some reason I'm wrong about that, great, because that means that he's out there right now and he's going to do good stuff. But yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. I don't think it's going to happen this year.
Believe with Justin.
That's a rhyme.
Yeah. I'm honestly going to say I think that he's going to do it. It's going to be like 6 or 7. It's not going to be a lot. It's probably going to be a mop-up duty. I think that he's a guy that could end up getting out there with Locke late in some games and end up have a game where he gets 3 catches for 35 yards or something like that if he comes in the midway through the third. He's going to get on I think he's going to force himself onto the field. Unless there's some type of injury that we don't know about, I think that he's going to find a way to get out there because I just think he's that big of a freak. I think Tretch is a guy I looked at. He's one of the few guys I've looked at from Wisconsin film at wide receiver that I'm like, this guy looks like he's going to be an NFL dude at some point.
Any chance he redshirts?
He might, but it will probably be he'll get all 4 games, I think, even if he does. He's going to be on special teams no matter what. I'll be shocked if he doesn't find a way to get into 4 games on special teams.
Well, to your point, Justin, too, he could be a Will Pauling injury and never hope for, obviously, who knows with injuries, right? He could be a Will Pauling injury away from being a major cog if he's ready too. So I'm going to take the under. Let's go with And this one, Commandant Clink says, crash with Justin. Going under on this one. Jake Mayer says, Treach is a guy I'm high on for the future, but there's too much talent in front of him right now. Sorry, Justin.
Keep in mind, Dean Ingram got 15 catches last year. I'm just saying.
Slightly different room.
Keep in mind the room is
but that team was throwing far less. That team was throwing far less.
Different room.
Look at who we brought in. No, you cannot say anything about it. You can't use any stats from last year to talk about these receivers.
Can we also keep in mind that was the son of the offensive coordinator last year? Listen, if Papa Kekahuna was running the offense, I would go
as far as we know, maybe he's like a son to Phil Longo. Okay?
Sure. Let's go here. Next over under. Justin, we'll kick this one to you. 3 receivers over 500 yards, and who would be your prediction? And we got to be kind of quick on these now.
If we're going to be quick on that, I think it's going to be probably Pauling, Green, and probably Dike.
So you're saying over on that?
You know what? What the heck? Yeah, I'll say it. I think Mordecai's going to have a big year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say under. Just I think it's probably going to be 2 people. I think you're going to have a guy that's maybe 900, maybe 750, and then the rest are going to be 4 something. So, yeah, I'm going to just say under. And I think that the 2 going over are going to be Dike and Green.
I'm going to say over. I think it'll be Pauling, Dike, and Green will all be over 500 with Dike leading the way. All right, last over under here. CJ Williams 6 touchdowns this year. Over under Rajiv.
6 touchdowns. I'm going to say under. Because, again, it's just going to get spread around a lot. Obviously, Allen's going to get carries. I did say on the QB show that I did think that Mordecai was going to have a lot of touchdowns. I've been over 27 because I do think they're going to throw the ball in the red zone a lot more. But that ball is going to get spread around a lot. And I think there's guys ahead of him in the order, so I'm going to say under 6 touchdowns.
Let me ask you this before we get into the next one. And I know I said we had to be quick on this, but what would your number be? Would it be difficult for you? What would be your prediction for him? Because I feel like he's going to be a big-time red zone threat potentially this year.
I would say 4 would be the number. 3 or 4 would be where I think it's going to end up. I just there's so much. There's so many people, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, not to mention the running backs. So I mean, you've got and tight ends. That's a lot of people to catch touchdowns. And if we're winning games by 30 or 40 points, sure. But I just think it's not going to be that simple.
I think it's going to be really interesting. I think he's going to get 30 plus catches. I think Williams will get to that. I don't know how many of them are going to be touchdowns. If I had to guess, I would say 5. So I'm going to take the under on it. But I don't think that he'll get opportunity, but I'm not sure he's going to be a guaranteed starter here. I need to see what's going to play out between him and Green before I know what's going to truly happen here. And I feel like I think it's going to be kind of like a 60-40 type split thing between those guys.
Yeah, I'm going to go under too. I think it's close though. Logan Couch says over. Williams will have 11 touchdowns. What a great year that would be, man.
Then our offense is going to be electric.
Mike says CJ Williams, Kyle Barry Johnson will be starting receivers in 24. So definitely some interesting stuff here. We're going to take a quick break, come back with superlatives, and then we're going to bang out a bunch of your comments here on the show, talk about any last points on our receiver talk. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show. Quick second to say thank you to everybody tuning in, as always. Really do appreciate all y'all. Listen, the season's coming. We're excited about it. I'm also excited to talk about Crenwick, Appleton, and Mason. You guys know those names. Let's get into this. Let's start with that's a great way to start. Let's talk about receiver recruit that broke your heart in our superlative section. It was a former receiver recruit that broke your heart.
He's the top guy on your board back there. I thought Crenwick Sanders was going to be a beast. I still remember watching his game footage. I think he had a game where he had 200 plus yards receiving in high school, and he had 7 catches with 6 touchdowns. And it was like the craziest thing I've ever seen from a receiver in high school. Ugh,
I agree completely. I agree completely. That's who I would have said. 100% agree. It just stinks because we all thought he was going to be way better.
Guys, in the comments, let us know which receiver recruit broke your heart. Crenwick was obviously first on my list, but listen, I'll just go to Craig Appleton then, because these guys are all kind of intertwined. 4-star receiver, huge recruiting win. Turns out a really not good dude, but Craig Appleton was somebody I thought would have a really good career here. Marquise Mason, for those that don't remember, was just built like a Terminator. I thought he had a ton of physical upside, and then he had ankle injuries and it just never came together. So those are mine there. Give me a underrated or most interesting storyline for the receivers this year.
So for me, the most interesting storyline is going to be how the depth chart plays out. I mean, I just feel like it's just a big guessing game right now. We can say that it's going to be Dike, and Green and Pauling, or it's going to be Williams, or where does Bell fit in? How much do we see of Keontez Lewis? I mean, I really think that I'm so excited to just be able to look at the reception totals at the end of the year. We could be totally off about who's going to blow up and who's going to be good because there's just so much depth. How does the ball get spread around? Who really shines? I mean, we saw during the spring game that Bell was kind of on that second team. Pauling was taking those first team reps. Does that materialize? Does Bell kind of fall down that depth chart, or does Bell step up and all of a sudden he might be the best receiver that we have? He's certainly my favorite, and I think that he's got a ton of talent. But with how many people you have on this roster, I'm just so excited to see how they line up. And after 3 or 4 games, you're going to really pretty much see, okay, who are going to be those guys that hit 800 and 550 receptions and 10 touchdowns or whatever the case is. So we're going to know very early on how it's really going to play out. But that, to me, is the storyline. I just can't wait to see those stats, to see where the ball's really going and who's going to be the guy that steps up and takes it to the top.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a tendency as fans to want to kind of Maddenize the game, where we look at it and be like, oh, we can just play these guys this amount and whatever. But the coaching staff has to look at it from a continuity standpoint and kind of look at it like, hey, if I want this top group with my top 3 guys to function at their highest level, they need to be out there for a certain number of snaps for me to be able to maximize them. And it's like, we have all this depth right now. We have to look at it from the standpoint of, yeah, this could end up being like a 75-25 kind of split for these guys. So there's going to be stats that the second group gets, but we have really no clue what we're looking at in terms of how it's going to break down. Like, there could be three straight possessions where we have our starters out there and then just kind of bring everybody in for a one series with with the second group, or they may be interchanging them based off of packages. It's really hard to tell. It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think both of your points are kind of intertwined, which I really like, because I'm in the same spot. I'm going to zoom in, really get into it, though, because I think the depth chart stuff is definitely the interesting storyline. But zooming in, I'm very interested to see specifically which receiver falls out, right? Like, there's so much depth here. Someone's not going to get the PT they want, and then you start wondering, well, what's their future in the program? Because receivers, listen, I think we have a good culture here, but receivers want to catch the ball, and receivers are notoriously upset when they don't catch the ball. So I'm interested to see who we really like falls out of the depth chart. And then I'm incredibly interested, if we're talking interesting storyline, I want to see what a 97 rated receiver coming out of high school does in Wisconsin. I'm just fascinated to see what CJ Williams, and I talked to his dad, that interview will be dropping sometime this week probably. He talked about there's basically 3 programs in the country that didn't offer CJ Williams out of high school. I just want to see what that dude looks like in Madison. So those are my 2 storylines I'm really fascinated by.
Yeah, I mean, some of those guys are not going to be on this roster next year, right? The receiver room, as we see it right now, some of those guys are going to transfer out, and it's a good point. I mean, who knows where this room is at the end of the season?
That's what I was going to say, actually. An underrated thing here is Green could be gone after this year. Like, he has a big year this year. He's probably not sticking around. Like, there's no reason for him to. He put up decent numbers last year at Oklahoma State. If he has a big year here this year, there's no reason for him to stick around and waste more time when he could be getting a pro contract, which I think is what will happen if he shows out this year.
A couple comments here, guys. Let's throw these in here. Skyler Bell, Derek asks, Skyler Bell, where does he fit in? Rajiv, I know this is your guy. Let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of freaking me out because I want to see him play a lot. I think when I look at the way that we're probably going to have 4 wideouts on a lot of plays, I think he's that 4th guy. I think the way that you see Dike, you see Green, Williams, and then Dike, Green, Pauling, and I think Bell is kind of that guy. Where Williams and Bell kind of both. How are they going to get their playing time? Where are they going to fit in? I do think Bell backs up Pauling. I think he's going to be really productive out of the slot as well. He can play outside. So I think he's going to be strong, but yeah, he's not going to necessarily be the number 2 guy on the team anymore. But he also has an opportunity because if he shows out the way he did last year, he can rise to the top of that depth chart. There's no reason he can't. But I'm a little concerned about how much PT he gets.
See, and that's where I see it differently than you. I think the 4th guy is actually Williams, and I think they're going to slide Dike into the slot, and you're going to have Pauling and Dike on the inside. Yep. You put the 2 big thoroughbreds on the outside, and then you put your guy who you consider potentially your best receiver in the inside, where he can
see that.
keep people off from press coverage, and then you have Pauling.
Yeah, Bell's going to have I think a struggle this year. And that's just what we talked about, right? Who falls out of this depth chart. Now, what I do like about Bell is I think he's a pretty physical receiver. He has to work on his hands, but I think he brings some physicality. Like he's got the ability to win against good corners, I think. And he's somebody that should continue to get better in a better strength and conditioning program. But he's going to have to battle, and that's what you want. All these receivers are going to have a struggle on their hands. And we talked about Bell a lot. Another one here asking from James, are we sleeping on Keontae Lewis? Just from my perspective, I don't think so, because I think he has a role on this team as a deep vertical threat, but I think the other receivers are better at the other things. And so I don't think he has a major role, but the role he has is important, right? I could see him having several huge catches this year for big gains, but then going 2 or 3 games where he has like one catch.
Yeah. He's a package guy to me. I think he's a guy that's going to be in when they're trying to set up certain things, but I don't see him I'm not sure we're going to see him out there consistently this season.
Yeah, I really don't think I agree. He's not, we're not sleeping on him. He's the guy that probably will fall out. I mean, if you look at our production that we had last year, I don't think he's going to match the production level he had last year. There's just too many people. It's a good problem to have.
One more superlative we had, a past Badgers receiver that doesn't get a lot of accolades, but you always really liked, a guy that you were really fond of for whatever reason.
I will answer this one first. I will take Luke Swan is a guy that I really, really liked.
That's a great one.
When he started out, he wasn't really going to be much. And then, boy, he really came on strong. 2005, 2006, I think he had 35, 40 catches one year. He was just consistent. He was a safety valve. He could be a deep threat. He could be a possession receiver. He had it all. He didn't have all the physical tools. He didn't have the height. He didn't have the body. But that guy was a gamer, and I love gamers. And same thing that I answered on the quarterback show we did a few days ago. I want the gamer guy, and like that, Jack Cohn was my gamer guy, and I feel like Swan is the gamer. He just stepped up anytime he needed, and I really, really, really liked that guy and enjoyed watching him play.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Erickson might not be a guy that really falls down to being undervalued, but I kind of think he is when we kind of look back in the heritage of Wisconsin wide receivers. And I look at him, and if we did not have him on that team for those couple of years, our passing game would have been an absolute nightmare. Like, he carried our passing offense for a couple of years.
Over 900 yards receiving. Yeah.
And he made plays against good teams too. Like, he carved up Alabama for a little while in that game. And then the same thing with USC in the bowl game.
And he's hung around the NFL. Like, he's a real dude. Like, he doesn't get the credit for he'll always carry that label as unathletic, despite the fact that he's in the NFL. And
he ran like a high 4.4 and was like a guy who
super.
He got in for a punt returner. Like, he's super sudden. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with a guy off the radar, but we're talking like underrated guys that you just liked for whatever. Kyle Jefferson was my guy. First of all, for his freshman start, like, he was really, and then he took that hellacious hit, if people remember, against Michigan State. And I will just always respect the way he just listen. He was never the same receiver, right? He just wasn't after that, but he popped up, took the hit.
No one can hold that against him. Good Lord.
But before then, he was showing great flashes of this deep vertical threat. I think if that hit doesn't happen, he goes on to have a much different Badger career. But Kyle Jefferson's always a guy I look back fondly. Let's throw a couple more of these comments in here, and I'm going to kick it over to you guys if there's anything else you're thinking that we missed. Justin says Rob Wheelwright always brought the juice.
I always remember him for that catch that he had against the diving catch against LSU.
Right, he had that
and
one
the USC one.
Yep,
the USC one.
Here's a comment on Klink says, do you think Chris Brooks has a chance of getting playing time? Was having an impressive spring until he got hurt. Guys, Chris Brooks, what do you think?
I don't really see him getting a lot of playing time. I want him to succeed. I think he certainly has some raw abilities, but again, we've just talked ad nauseum about the depth of this room, and he's sitting at like the 10th spot, 10th, 11th spot on these receivers. And I mean, how many catches can he really get there?
I look at him like this, and had he not had the injury in spring ball, it might be a different story. The fact he didn't get a chance to move up the depth chart and to build chemistry with the first or second team really was a problem. There's also the fact I don't think he's expected to be available right away to start fall camp, which means it's going to be really hard for him to move up if we start game planning and stuff like that without him being part of that group. Like, he's not going to get as much time to push. The first couple of weeks are when he'd get his chance to show what he's got before, the last 2 weeks are effectively game planning for the start of the season and the first few opponents.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would say this, if not for the injury, I would actually kind of say yes. I would disagree a little bit here with you, Rajiv, only based on the fact that Brooks brings something different. Like, he's something that Longo can utilize in a different way than any other receiver on the roster, even McIntosh. But the injury just throws a wrench into the whole thing. Jake says, my man Rajiv was going to say the same thing. I think he's agreeing with you on the Erickson take. Luke Swan, yeah. Sorry. Yep, Luke Swan. Greg Linscomb says Duckworth. That's a great one if we're talking receivers.
Big Ten championship game. Mitch
Ames says Swan was a pro until he got hurt. Tim again says Chris Brooks Jr. may move past guys. Matthew Anderson, Gilreath. Listen, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Archer 452. Hey guys, OSU fan here. Good luck this season. Looking forward to a crazy game in Madison. Admittedly, don't know much about UW's roster this year, so thanks for the content. I wanted to put this up here because I think we are all making plans to get to the night game against Ohio State in Madison. So Locked On fam, Discord fam, fans of Believe with Rajiv, which outnumber any other type of fam. We will be doing a get together. We're probably not going to do a show because of logistics, but we would love to meet everybody and talk to everybody and just share a beer.
It was a great time when we were out there for the spring game, and we got to meet so many of you listening and watching us. So yeah, that was really, really fun. Come have beer with us, drink with us, and hopefully we can celebrate an incredible victory over Archer's team.
It would be amazing, Archer. But thanks for jumping on the show, my friend. Hope to meet up with you as well if you're in there for the game and share a beer. Note Oil says Gilreath was fast. Mike says Gilreath. Josh, Jared Aberderis, Jake Mayer, Kenzel Doe holds a special place in my heart. That punt return against Utah State essentially won us that game. Mark D, I have a question about CJ Williams. USC has no doubt great receivers, and he decided to come here. Could that be a knock on CJ or a good pickup for us? I know, Justin, you've talked about this a lot. Let me say one thing his dad said, just to kind of tease the interview, and then, Justin, I'm going to kick it over to you. His dad, they got a little frustrated that USC had basically moved to shorter, quicker, faster, shiftier receivers, and they didn't really see the fit of CJ in that system as much as the season went on. So I'll just throw that nugget out there. That's from CJ's dad.
I actually would agree with that. I think Addison wasn't even a huge guy, was he? He was a smaller guy. Yeah. So, I mean, you look at it, listen, he got reps at USC in a stacked receiver room last year. So people sitting there talking about, there's been people that have been like, oh, he wasn't good enough to play at USC. He was good enough to play at USC. He actually got on the field as a true freshman, which says a lot about him. What I'll say with this is simply this. He's got more opportunity here. He has a chance to jump in year one, and it wouldn't shock anyone, I don't think. If he goes out there and has 40 catches this year, I don't think any of us would be shocked with that. There's 4 or 5 guys that we look at that any one of them could break out. And CJ, probably from a physical tools standpoint, might have the highest, or probably does have the highest ceiling out of any of them. So I think the opportunity for him to potentially be the number one here, he's got just more of a chance. And if you're going to get a similar type of offense and you feel like this is a team you can believe in, and let's be honest, with USC coming in here, they may have some struggles coming into the Big Ten because it's not the same league that they were in. There's a difference with some of the way that the football is played in the Big Ten. It's going to be like the games they played against Utah, where they didn't want to deal with Utah's physicality at some of those times. And yes, some of the teams won't have that talent that Utah had last year, but there's going to be teams that are going to cause problems for USC. And Wisconsin is just kind of ahead of the curve already in dealing with the league in comparison to what USC is.
CJ Williams is trying to get to the NFL. He has NFL talent. He's going to get seen here more.
Yep.
He's going to have a lot more number one reps. And frankly, that's what he's after. And I think it's a great place for him. And so, no, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think he's going to show USC how much he could have been used there.
Greg Linscomb says the best receivers in the spring game were the defensive backs. Yeah.
Well, one certain one.
Greg, we all want to forget what we saw there, and hopefully it's all a distant memory.
Says Crookshank, talking about receivers that you're going to remember fondly. Logan Couch also says Big Ten is better than the SEC. I would disagree with that, but that's an interesting conversation.
It is an interesting conversation that we should get into sometime because
Logan
I
Couch
somewhat agree with you.
How about this? CJ Williams pro comp Keenan Allen, same type of physical build.
I think that's a valid one. I think his ceiling is first round NFL wide receiver, like first round draft pick. If he hits his ceiling, I think that he's definitely capable of getting to that point. And he's a guy I look at on this. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets 30 plus catches this year and goes out and has an all conference type year in 2024, where you look at it and it's like, all right, he's going pro. Like that wouldn't shock me at all.
Here's the thing too, really, and we got to kind of start to wrap this up, but CJ Williams as a high school recruit was rated to 97, right? One of the top 75 players in the entire country, a top 10-ish receiver. Okay. And then in the transfer portal, he's rated like a 90. And it's like,
that's nonsense.
Like if somebody buys the new car, then parks it in a garage, it loses half its value or a third of its value, but it's the same car. You know, he's a elite sports car that someone just parked in the garage in USC. Wisconsin landed a top 75 player in a class a cycle ago. And if we had done that this cycle, people would be losing their mind for this player. You know, I think the hype is a little down because of nothing. Really, every physical tool he has that led to that pedigree and that ranking is still there. After talking to his dad too, like I can't wait to see what he does this year. That's why I had that listed in my storyline. Guys, anything else that I missed on the receiver thing? Any other last thoughts that you want to throw out there?
No, I'm just looking forward to it, man. I've never been so excited to watch a Badger offense in my life because for once, I know I'm not going to be watching running plays on first and second down every drive. It's been a long time since we've had that.
Agreed. Gentlemen.
I mean, what else can you say about this room and how deep it is and how, we have no idea who are the top 4 people that are going to have the receptions, but we're going to find out soon. And that's pretty special. It's very, very special that we've got all this talent. And don't forget, these guys already did the preview show, but right behind the quarterback, we've got our ultimate weapon in Braylon Allen. So boy, we have a very exciting offense ahead of us.
Lumosity says Justin is the only smart one on this show. I agree. Like,
wait a second.
Wait, no. Even Justin. Sorry, I'm not a smart one. I'll say that. Justin brings great insight. I say this all the time. The best part about Justin is he will think on his own outside of the box and then rationally back it up without getting ticked if people disagree with him. I think we'd all be better if we thought more, if we were able to do that more consistently. And Justin crushes that. So. Yeah, listen, Rajiv and Justin are the only smart ones on this show. Mark D says, do you have any interviews to tease coming up besides CJ's dad? I got CJ's dad. We did an interview with Raphael Dunn's head coach. That's a good one. It'll be fun to talk about that. Very versatile player for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Comment on Clink says, we're still waiting for Bo to bring up guard's name. That's right. It's going to break the matrix if Bo Dragon doesn't want to fire guard on a live show. Yeah. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there. We're at 42 minutes. Y'all are amazing. Thank you so much. Rajiv and Justin, as always, you guys are great. On Wisconsin, let's talk tomorrow.